Good morning. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Again, this is day 2 of our department's budget presentation. Again, I want to welcome the members of the Board of Finance.
Thank you.
And welcome their participation on this presentation. We'll start off with the Board of Assessment Appeals. Barbara Hamlin. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Barbara.
For this particular budget, there's a slight decrease in secretarial hours, being that we're still working on the last revaluation. It's anticipated we'll have fewer cases. Also, the office supplies I reduced down. I still have some stock in that from before, so I don't anticipate we'll need really much more in that. I did add a line item for education, which in the past has kind of been lumped in under the office supplies, and I just thought it'd be cleaner to have a separate line item for education. From time to time, we do send our board members to classes to keep up with the current information. Overall, there would be like a $578 reduction for this particular budget. I would like the members to keep in mind, though, that our next revaluation is 2017. So once that budget comes around, there will be a definite increase in the budget.
Good.
Questions? Comments?
Barbara, may I commend you for reducing your own pay? Thank you.
Set the example. Thank you, Barbara. Did you hear that, Lynn?
It's not going to happen.
About to say, savor the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have her at department head meetings. Okay, zoning board of appeals, do we have anybody for that or not? I don't think so. Okay. Okay, historic district. Morning, John, how you doing?
Very good. John Cunningham from the Historic District Commission. I believe by reading through this last night with the rest of the board, I think we're just asking for the same amount of funds from last year to this year. Our only means of really generating income is a $50 filing fee with each application. And years have gone, years go by. Some years it's a little bit busier than others. Last year we had a little decrease in the amount of applications, but the applications have become larger, where they've moved to 2 or 3 different meetings, specifically 66 High Street. We're now anticipating there might be a couple other ones. As far as expenses, we've tentatively set up a lighting seminar with lighting affiliates to go through outdoor lighting in the downtown village district, okay, to make sure that we're all suggesting the correct kind of lighting for Guilford. I think so far, I think everyone agrees that I think downtown Guilford's a terrific place, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
All right?
Questions, comments? John, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
That, you should point out that John left his income on this the same.
The same that we get.
The same that you get. Yeah, the same that we get.
Okay, next department would be the Human Services. I believe Steve Lumber is going to make that presentation. And you have some company, Dee?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Pam Elman. I'm also a member of the Human Services Council.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, were you going to say something?
I was going to ask if you had any questions.
Oh, if you just want to review what you presented.
Well, as you know, we partner with these agencies that do things that the town can't provide in terms of human services, and these agencies can't run like businesses really, although they are business-like in our review of them. So in partnering with them, we help them do their jobs we certainly do due diligence to see that they're doing their jobs. And there isn't that much of a change. There's no big changes in any agencies or anything this year to report, so.
I have a question. For the last several years, you've contributed or requested to contribute $10,000 to the Orchard House, and you've reduced that this year.
Because they requested less, because they have found, and these are the kind of people we're dealing with, which I think is nice, is that they have found some other revenue streams, and they reduced their request.
Okay. Thank you.
Right?
That's right. They had a big event with a comedian, which
Pardon me?
they had a big event with a comedian, which I think attracted a lot.
You're not talking about us.
No, I don't know. So I think that was advertised far and wide, and I think they made a lot of revenue off of that.
Okay, great.
I did have a question. BH Care, Harbor Health, see you're increasing that as a result of a request from them?
Yes, and in view of, they're really struggling with the state funding.
Okay.
And we do feel that they're a very important part of the puzzle with dealing with the seriously mentally ill,
Okay.
which is what they do.
One of the things that came up at our Board of Finance meeting on Tuesday night was the fact that they hadn't requested any of their funds at this point, which we found unusual. Because I believe they have $10,000 for BH Care Inc. and then BH Care Domestic Violence, another $4,000. They've not asked for that money yet. Is that just poor bookkeeping?
This does happen from time to time. We'll have to talk to them.
Okay.
But I do believe they need the money.
Please come take your money.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, if I recall, just to go off of that, there were maybe 4 agencies that hadn't requested money, so it was a little bit odd to see that the percentage spent, it's usually at this point, it's about 100%. Like, everyone's asked for their money and it's been distributed, but there were a few that hadn't. Is that just a timing issue? Because it was about 70%, 71% spent for the year. And it just seemed odd that a few agencies hadn't requested money and hadn't been provided money yet, but.
You know, I think partially because they work so hard on their mission. That's all I can really say. This has happened. We call them up when we notice that they haven't drawn their funds.
At the end of the year, it'll be 100%.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's ever failed to draw their money. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
That's what I figured, so.
Yeah.
There was one agency that was very embarrassed that they sort of overlooked it, and they were just appalled that it was just a little error, and they're, like you said, they are overworked and understaffed,
And that's
they
it,
were
understaffed.
just really embarrassed is the best way to put it, yeah.
I have a question on the VNA. Why is this such a large agency? Why do they request so much? And I see you've given them a quarter of what they requested.
You know, we in the days when we had more funding, we gave them more, and they have just never dropped their request. But they were the ones that we cut the most when we did have, which was about, I don't know, 10, 12 years, I don't know, 2008 maybe. We had a major cut in this budget, and we cut them the most because they have the biggest revenue stream. And they would be hurt the least, we felt. And they never stopped asking for the same amount that they used to get. So we just keep giving them this lower amount that we do value them tremendously, but we feel that they're stable. And some other places we feel could really lose ground if we don't back them.
So they keep asking the same each year? Then?
Yeah, they kind of,
Yeah.
don't get the message, but.
They've even asked us why we submit X amount and you give us X last year, why is that? And we tell them exactly what Dee said. It's a limited budget, we can't give you what you're asking for. Nobody asks for the amount that you're asking for. These other agencies, which we value equally, ask for a lot less and are less stable in their footing, but they just sort of in one ear and out the other, I guess.
Okay.
Along the same lines, the total request versus what you've allocated, the total difference is only $36,000 for all of these entities combined. And 18 of that is for the VNA, so half of that you've cut back is for VNA, which you just talked about. But my question is, you mentioned BH Care really needing the money. The extra $18,000 that you cut them back, it affects, I just went through and looked at the number of people that it actually impacts, and it's quite a significant number of individuals. And, you know, I'm all for cutting budgets and whatnot, but if the extra $18,000 impacts 1,000 people and you really need the money, I would prefer the town to spend the 18,000 because we spend, as I've talked about before, we spend $20,000 for hockey, for 50 people to play hockey, and I love hockey, don't get me wrong, I'm all for spending money on hockey. And $30,000 on the golf course, which is used by hundreds of people. So does the $18,000 that you cut, how, is that not a significant cut, or is that?
That's a cut from their request. And traditionally, we have always cut their request. For one thing, we keep an eye on the percent. We're going higher than last year, and we feel some pressure to not spend every penny, you know. There's different views on this. Not everybody wants to see our budget go up.
Right. No, it's sort of penny wise, pound foolish. $18,000 in the grand scheme of our budget is not a lot of money. I'd rather see us look to cut hundreds of thousands from other areas as opposed to $18,000 from your department.
Nice to hear that.
I do want to thank you for the detail that you provided, and as Ken had mentioned, that was something I was going to mention. I was surprised by the number of Guilford residents that are affected by these programs, that are or benefit from these programs. Just the BH Care, 130 domestic violence, 130 Guilford residents. Women and Family Life Center, 430 Guilford residents. BH Care, formerly Harbor Health, 199 Guilford residents. Clifford Beers, 60 families in Guilford affected by that. And that Clifford Beers is for children?
Yes.
Yeah. Guilford Center for Children, 47 Guilford residents. The before and after school program is 228 children. And in VNA Healthcare, 1,466 residents or 204 households. So I agree with Ken, it's a significant amount of impact. So often when people see these programs, they see it going out of town. But those out of town agencies are agencies that our residents take advantage of. So.
That's part of our mission. We're not trying to fund something that's happening in Branford or New Haven. We're looking at Guilford residents
Wonderful.
served. And there's a lot going on in Guilford, in our lovely suburban town that is lovely. We don't know about some of the difficult things that are happening here.
And your point, you made a point, you are increasing your budget. It's going up by 8.4%.
That's right. That's right.
So there are additional contributions going up. So.
And some of these agencies, too, I will mention, Ken, is that they are not all working on just contributions. They do bill insurance companies, and they are reimbursed by insurance companies.
We make a difference between those in our heads, and, like domestic violence charges nothing, because they really, really can't.
But like VNA, I know,
Yes.
is reimbursed by insurance companies for their
That's
services.
correct.
So.
And Clifford Beers to some extent, and some of the others, yeah.
And we have the VNA come here and give shots to employees.
Oh, yeah.
They get reimbursed, so they get an opportunity essentially to make money
Yeah.
from the town through our insurance reimbursements.
Anything else? Either board, okay? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Next department be Youth and Family Services. Lynn Landry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lynn. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
What else would I be doing on Thursday morning?
No wonder.
Place to be in town.
Yeah. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, all right.
We're ready.
So it's a pretty flat budget, almost the same as last year. The only increase so far is my salary. Contractual obligations. The other members of my staff are members of the GEA, and they're negotiating this year. So those raises will not be reflected in this budget so far. And I've cut other line items where I could, looking at the expenses we had last year. A good example of that is postage. We really don't use much anymore. With the we use Constant Contact, which is our electronic newsletter, so I've cut that considerably. We were lucky that utilities went down a little bit because of gas and oil prices, and that's about it.
Lynn, I had a question.
Sure.
Part-time salaries, currently year-to-date, you're at 26% expended on your original appropriation of nearly 35,000.
I'm down that person.
You're down?
Yeah,
in the
she
original?
resigned in November.
Okay.
Yeah,
We posted this week.
yeah, so we'll be posting that this week. We're hoping, usually we can go without advertising. We know social workers that we can recruit. We haven't had much luck with this one. And it's a little worrisome because it'll affect revenue. Right now, the interns that we have are carrying that load, so I'm not too concerned, but come May, we really need that position filled.
Is there a concern over the current position rate or the fact that it's part-time? Is it why we're having difficulty attracting
It
a
would, yeah.
candidate?
It would be easier to attract a full-time person. We actually had a very good candidate, but she didn't want to leave her full-time job. She needed full-time and benefits.
Is there any cost-benefit analysis maybe that could take place to bring that individual to full-time and realize additional revenues as a result of that?
Well, we usually go way over our revenues anyway, so I know that we could cover it with no problem. Last year, our revenue goal was 106,000, and we brought in 131,000. Same thing the year before. Might not be as high this year, but we will surpass our goal. So I know that the money is there in revenue.
How long has that position been vacant?
Since November.
Okay, well, that's not that.
No, we have,
No,
and
no.
we're about, because Lynn has contacts with people. She was first checking to see, her contacts, and we've discussed it this week, and we're gonna post it by today or tomorrow. So we'll
Right.
see, the next couple weeks, we'll see what kind of applications we get or don't get. And I
Right.
think that'll give us, Matt, a better idea of whether we have to make any changes
Yeah.
to any of those.
I think for the first time, I've been here almost 9 years now, and we've never advertised in the paper for positions. We've always been able to recruit. This might be the first time, so we'll see what we get. I need somebody soon, because then it takes 2 to 3 months to panel them on the insurance companies, so I need that position before the interns leave in May.
Can you talk a little bit about I'm not really all that familiar with the various services you provide. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about the change, to the extent there has been any, in the number of families and/or individuals in town from a year-to-year basis, using
Using our
Yeah.
services? Well, it's twofold, because 2/3 of what we do is prevention work in the community and in the schools with all of our programs. The other third, which we tend to focus a little bit more on during these meetings, is our clinic, because it produces revenue. So that's only 1/3 of what we do, and we usually see between 50 to 75 kids in the clinic up to age 18. And then in our programs, we have, we probably have 20 to 30 programs. Some big things that we do, like during Halloween with Parks and Rec, we do our big musical in the spring. That's all funded by grants. We do a summer camp that's all funded by grants and Department of Labor money to pay the counselors. So those are very huge programs. The other ones run throughout the year.
So the 50 to 75 kids, has that been a fairly static number for the past 5 years, would you say?
Most definitely. So what we've seen is when the economy tanked, we had a lot of people that hurried to use their insurances before they lapsed, and so we had almost 100 clients that year. Then it evened out a little bit. When major things happened, like when Obamacare happened and everybody had to have insurance, then everybody ran to get insurance policies, we saw another spike. So we run right now pretty consistently between 50 to 70 kids.
And if you had to break down the salaries between the third and the 2/3 of the programs that you just talked about, the macro programs versus the micro, for lack
It's
of a better-
impossible to do because we do both.
Right, so the clinicians, though, I would assume are more focused on the 50 to 75, or is that inaccurate?
That's inaccurate,
Okay.
because the clinicians also do programs, so it's a mixture.
Okay.
I only divide it to show what we do as an agency, but as far as the staff, it's blended.
Glenn?
Yes,
I'm sorry, Ken, I didn't see.
No, I'm all done, thanks.
no, the other,
Oh.
Two Kens here.
Ken number 2.
I noticed on your revenue. Thank you.
Wow.
Defer, why don't you try to defer?
Go ahead, Ken.
Shall I?
You're older, go ahead.
back at it today.
I noticed that the one area that you spiked in was in psychiatric services, and you had, if my math is right, on the 55,800, you're projecting 276 hours this year.
On the
Psychiatric services.
No, his hours didn't go up, his per hour went up.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah.
What did it go up from?
175 to 200. This,
Did it? It says in I that it was 175 an hour.
right. And
that's-
so in order to keep him, because child psychiatrists are very difficult to come by, he was pretty adamant about not having a cost of living increase, and I said, well, nobody gets cost of living
It's the
increases.
same hourly.
It's the same hourly, and you know, out in the community, that's what psychiatrists are charging, $200 to
Sure.
$250 an hour. And I won't get on my soapbox about that.
Right. But basically, it's a flat.
It's flat, yeah.
There's no spike in.
No spike in hours, no.
Thank you, sir.
To youth.
Nice guy. On revenue,
Yes,
you're back to the 106, hasn't it?
yeah, well, I'm a little concerned about the part-time person, clinician not being filled on time, so I'm a little cautious about that. You know, and every 3 years, we have 2 years that are pretty normal, I would say, and then for some reason, the third year always spikes, and, you know, 6 years ago was because of the economy, 3 years ago was because of Affordable Care Act, Health Care Act, and so I'm not seeing that spike yet for another couple of years. It seems to be a pattern, so I'm trying to hold it steady for this coming year.
So I would say you're pretty conservative, because by July, you're gonna be up to full staff. At least I hope
I
you
hope
will,
so,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, so I'm trying to be conservative around that figure. 'Cause a lot of things can affect that, not having a position filled, not having that person paneled for, it takes 2 to 3 months to get them paneled on the insurance company, so that means we can't bill when they see
For their-
people,
right.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but it looks like that you, well, I know you've begun the search process
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
So my best guess, that person will be on board at least by May.
I hope so, yeah,
And then paneled probably by August.
yeah.
At latest.
At the latest,
So
at the
we're
latest.
losing maybe 1 month.
Yeah, maybe,
of billing.
yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
On the other hand, if any one of our other staff leaves or whatever, it has to get replaced, you again lose 3 months worth of.
Possibly.
They're not allowed to leave.
They're not.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we might have a little play there.
Yeah, because right now, we're about, in revenue, we're about half a month behind, which is unusual for this time of year.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the way things are going
Well,
right now.
because you're down 1.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
I understand
yeah.
that.
Okay, I have the revenue reports through December, and you're in pretty good shape. You're
Yeah.
at 60%, 51%, but you're usually a month in arrears.
Yeah,
So
yes.
I'm saying you're probably closer to 60%. So,
Right, right.
Unless there's going to be a drop-off because you don't have that clinician available for the
Not
next
yet,
couple of months.
as long as I have the interns, we have 5 interns who see clients, so,
That's-
second year social work
That's why I
students.
say I think your revenue projections might be very conservative on it.
Well, my board, you know, laughs at me because I'm always conservative, and then, you know, Michael said, then you shoot it out of the park. I'm like, well,
Okay.
you know, it's better to be conservative and hit your goal
Under promise and
than to overreach.
Good.
Any other questions?
No, the
Gary?
only other thing
Yeah.
to mention is Lynn keeps mentioning interns, and for those that don't understand the process, these are students that she's able to bring in that can do services which under a clinician's supervision are allowed to be billed, but are no cost to us.
Right.
So it's a very efficient and valuable way of getting additional counseling help at no cost, or actually at revenue to the town, and provide services to the kids that need it.
All right,
And then, you know, one final comment I'd like to make is that this service that Lynn's department provides is, prime objective is not revenue. It's a very, very needed service to the community and does excellent work. And because of her service, it reduces the amount of police service we have to provide. And you could ask any one of our former chiefs and current chiefs, that they value the services of youth and family services wholly. I mean, it's unbelievable what you
We have a
provide
great
to the
collaboration
community.
with the police department
Yeah, and the school system.
and the school system, right?
So we thank you for
Thank
all
you.
your hard work,
Thank you.
okay?
All right. Have a great day,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
As I've said a number of times when we review the numbers, unfortunately, an increase in revenue for Lynn is not necessarily a great thing for the town of Guilford.
That's right. Same thing goes for ambulance.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Next department, social services. Tammy DeFrancesco, Director. Good morning, Tammy.
I'm okay. Been through these for, what, 25 years? I find them no less intimidating. Seriously. No, you're not. It's all internal. Hi. Next, you just wanna,
Yep, absolutely. Oh, is it different?
there's
Tammy?
one of each, two different ones.
Two different ones there?
There you go.
Two there. Oh, is it?
No, it's just, oh, I handed you mine. The first. See?
I have one of those. It's a chart, yeah.
One of the charts here.
No, I didn't.
Just do one of those back.
There should be two different ones.
Two different ones.
It's a simple task.
I,
Oh, I see this.
I tried making them different colors.
Oh, all right.
I'm glad Sheila and Mitch now have name tags, so we know which one is which.
You guys should all
Is that
have
for our
tags,
benefit?
Two
too.
different ones, yeah.
Oh, two there, okay, I
Two
got it.
different ones.
That's from the pension committee, yeah.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I see.
There's two different
We didn't want to give
color
up our
schemes
seats.
here.
Seats, yeah, smart move.
Might be different.
The reason for these little handouts is to show you that the work at social services and the amount of citizens that use our services hasn't decreased.
Grease.
And again, I was able to reduce the budget. I mean, again, I should say this year I've been able to reduce the budget, except for the salaries from the two GEA staff people, because we don't have those numbers. And the only expenses we have is what is to maintain the department, the building. All our programs are done by money that we raise, that we fundraise for. And the programs that we administer for the state and for any of the Operation Fuel, Community Renewal Team, and Eversource and Southern Connecticut Gas to lower people's heating expenses, utility expenses. Everything else is funded through donations, fundraisers, and
Right. This is an opportunity for you to give a commercial to the community
Okay.
relative to some of the types of donations, gifts that you guys receive. I know in the past, I think I've had some contact with your office when I had furniture that
Sure.
I needed to give
Yeah.
away or get dispose of.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you do along those lines, what kind of things that donations you take from the community to
Okay.
aid your clients?
The donations, we have a gift fund that it all goes into and is designated out for different sources of expenses, utilities, shelter, rents, quality of life. We get a lot of our donations from private individuals throughout Guilford. We also have a number of organizations and businesses that actually do fundraising events for us. A lot of the Guilford businesses are very provide us with a lot of, first of all, exposure, because then people bring, at least know there is a social service department, there is a Guilford Food Bank, and then there is the monies that they do raise. A lot of the civic organizations, a lot of the schools, all the schools do something for us. So, and the program that you happen to mention is something that we just do internally that doesn't cost us any money. And it's usually people who are looking to donate a very good piece of furniture or whatever it happens to be, or appliance. And we have a list of those that need those items. So we're able to provide it to them. We also have an organization that helps us with any, a lot of people can't afford certain services, whether it's be to move or replace a fence or put up a fence. A mailbox that happens to have fallen down. We have a group, the St. George Men's Group, who also does a lot of fundraising for us. We'll go out and do these things.
Tammy, in past years, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in past years, you've actually given us a dollar number for the amount of donations and contributions which you've gotten from these various sources that you've described and passed on. Do you know what that number is?
Oh dear, I wrote myself what I've spent, but I didn't write. We get about, on any given year, we can get anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000-$90,000 in donations.
Which gets passed through to residents.
To
in need.
residents, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just an important number to put out there.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. And as I said, it gets spent on things like heating oil, utilities, rents, mortgages. We've paid people's, one-time mortgage.
Does that include the food bank?
Food bank as well, yeah. We spend a good $40,000 a year on the food bank, 30, 40. And then the in-kind donations to the food bank are immeasurable, so.
These are all Guilford households when I look at the total households, right?
Definitely.
The thing I find interesting about this is if you look at the trajectory, the new households is basically constant at 200. You get 200 new people in every year, but only 100 roll off. So if you look at the total number of households in town that are using your services, it's net going up by 100 per year, and it's now gotten to the point where it's 800, which is roughly 9% of our housing stock. We have 9,300 households approximately in town.
Right.
So 9% of our households now are using your services, which to me is troubling. And I'd be curious to know, which I doubt you do know, but the 100 that are rolling off, so you get 200 coming in every year and you're retaining 100, it just shows you that this dichotomy, that there is a large group of people in town that are suffering, and it's getting larger.
Yes.
And so a lot of people posit that we can afford to keep spending money, and I'm one of the ones that believes that we really have to be careful about how we're spending our money and where we're spending our money going forward, because these 3% and 4% budget increases annually, it's compound interest that is hurting people like this. And we've got an equal number of homes that are using the senior tax credit. I believe it's 815 that are on the senior tax credit now, which is another 9%. And there's probably a little bit of overlap, I would guess. Maybe you could answer that as well. We've got 9% on the senior tax credit program, and we've got 9% here, I see, that are using your services, and it looks like it's growing by 1% a year, basically. So it's something it's concerning. So I am looking at those numbers correctly, though.
Yeah, and the people that would fall off could be those that, the younger folks who have gotten a job, weren't doing well at one point. There are people who have moved out of Guilford, and there are people who have died.
Yeah.
We deal a lot with the elderly and the disabled, and year after year, we do not see them back.
Are you able to give a a guess on what percentage of the ones that are rolling off have moved?
I'd have to go back. I could very easily go do it. I just don't have that, the figure at the top of my head.
Okay. Thank you.
More of a people as opposed to a number person. I'm sorry.
And Tammy, my expectation is that you're working with a range of folks
Yes.
on the need curve,
Yes.
if you will.
Yeah.
Some in, facing significant financial constraints, others with other issues that they're
Yes.
dealing with. So this is not necessarily all just straight financial concerns, is that correct?
True. Yes.
Just wanted-
Yes.
And I also just wanted to clarify something, Ken. Since fiscal year 2010-11, it has been over 700, so it's not increasing by 100 per year. It's relatively flat
Well-
curve here, 705, 750. so-
I'm just looking at the averaging line that she put in, which looks like it's about 100 per year. This is
Yeah.
that averaging line that they put in. I mean, that could be wrong, but that's.
Right,
what-
the average line.
I'm
yeah.
looking at the
I'm-
averaging.
I'm looking at the
Yeah.
actuals as opposed to the average, so.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments for Tammy?
I did one comment. A couple of, for many years, you came here looking for
Yes.
additional staff hours.
Yes.
And
Annually.
we all went around the table and we understood the need.
Yes.
The staffing levels were increased last year.
Yes.
And it's refreshing to see it have you come
Smile?
here. Yeah, not asking for more. And is so the question is, has that made a difference in the efficiency in your operation?
Enormously. Enormously. And actually, I did prepare something. I could make a copy of it so I don't have to read it to you and take
That'd
your
be fine.
time.
That would be fine.
But I can certainly hand it out. But it made a difference in our office. It made a difference in the efficiency. Additionally, we had a 10-hour a week, 10 to 12-hour a week professional volunteer who we lost to a very critical illness this summer. And she was doing 10 hours a week of actually professional work for us. She was doing intake. And we had to absorb the hours that we had depended on her doing. And having that extra staff, we were at least able to change the tasks that each of us did. And so it worked out so that we could continue to provide the services that we did, so, and efficiently, and I smile more, so. No, it really has made a difference in the office, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I will make sure. The only thing I'd like to say is, one of the things that, I'm also the municipal agent for the elderly, so I'm not only just providing services to those on a financial need, as you were saying before, and one of the interesting things to me is Guilford's population is getting older, and I think that a lot of the middle class was affected most by the economy, and a lot of the people are boomers, and we're all getting older, and Guilford's population is in 2010 was 17.5, we're over 65. By 2025, the Connecticut's Commission on Aging predicts it'll be estimated at 30%. So that's always and we deal with a lot of the elderly. So I just want to put that out there. But thank you.
Good, thank you. Tim, thank you very much, and like I said to Lynn, you're providing a great service for the
Thank
town.
you.
I know every time a resident comes up to me and has a problem that I feel you could handle, pick up the phone,
Make the referral.
I send her down to Tammy's building, and it's taken care of. I never
Thank
have to
you.
worry about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
I'm going to just alter the schedule a little bit. I had a request from the registrars. One of the registrars has a personal issue. The other departments don't mind. I'm going to move them up first. So would registrars like to come up? Good morning. Good morning, ladies.
Morning. Thanks for making the adjustment.
You're welcome.
Hey. Did you want us to begin?
You're on.
So as you can see, it is an increase of 6.1% over last year. This is a presidential year for us. So more workers, maybe a primary in August, maybe an audit, which is a lottery poll if we're checked after each election
And primary.
and primary.
And we seem to be in a cycle now of being chosen by random. For the first 5 years, Guilford never came up, and ever since 2012, we've been chosen for an audit, and that's takes a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of money.
Okay, and I will point out for the two registrars that their salaries are set by the Board of Finance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do have certification and education, which has gone up. I think in there, it was $30 for each moderator, and within the past 3 weeks, we found out it's going to be $40. Plus our certification now to UConn is, our class is there, and that's within that budget line item.
And this is another pet peeve of mine, if I can chime in on this one, is that through the wisdom of our state legislators, another unfunded mandate, that they are required to go to more training.
26 hours.
Excuse me?
26 hours.
26 hours more than my license requires, and at the cost of the town.
Yeah, plus ongoing, after the certification has
Plus-
been achieved,
plus we
8 to
have-
10 hours a
Plus, we
year.
have to pay them a stipend, plus we have to pay for their travel.
So, and
So
it's, we
something I'm
have,
going to bring up to our state delegation again.
and we have to travel to a UConn campus
Yeah.
and watch the professor on a screen who is in Stanford.
Yeah, there you go.
Why we can't do that, on our
There you
computer
go.
at home,
Right.
and
So that's no fault of theirs. That's,
No.
that's the law. Mike?
Quick, you just mentioned an audit.
Yeah.
Where does that fall in the budget?
Well, it would go under November election
It would go under
expense
November.
or primary.
and I think we put them in just in case we were having, which is basically the salary for people counting each ballot by hand.
Do you need to know what exactly is contained within an audit, what we have to do?
And I was just wondering where it fell.
Oh,
and
okay.
if that cost was, because you just said it is quite a cost, it's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
So I saw it on November election, obviously, for the reasons that you said, presidential election, 6,000 to 7,500. I was wondering if the audit actually was,
It was in there,
It's
and
in
it's
that.
also in the primary. A primary audit is not nearly as expensive as a November election audit.
okay, but it's inclusive?
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any board members? Okay, thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Okay,
I've
thank
got a
you.
request from the members of the Board of Selectmen to take a 2-minute recess.
That might be a health break.
You're good. Okay, we'll continue with the town assessor.
That's me.
Mr. Ed Karpinski. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Ed.
Got it now.
Thanks.
This is assessor.
Okay.
My budget has 7 line items, 6 excluding salaries. Of those 6 accounts, 4 are no change. One is an increase of $50 due to contractual computer services. One is a reduction of $22 due to copier costs. So excluding salaries, I'm asking for $28 more this next year.
Jeez, I don't know if we can afford it.
Yeah. We could take a collection.
We might have to. Okay.
Okay.
Just to refresh me, we in a different line have an allocation for the cost of the revaluation.
That's
That's
correct.
not part of this budget, but there is a line item. Sheila, what is that number?
That's correct.
Well, we haven't gone out to bid yet, so we actually have an estimate in of about 290,000. That's funded over a 3 or 4 year period.
Right.
And we can kind of jump to it. I asked for $75,000 this year. We have $55,000 in reserve fund balance, and we may actually put a little extra in this year. I think we should probably put in between 35 and 60 in fiscal 16 to the reserve.
Okay, and this is in your budget?
It's just its own,
Is
the
it its own?
auditors forced us to have a separate department within general fund. It used to be actually a
Okay.
reserve. So what happens is, we budget for it, and then it goes to a reserve as part of fund balance.
Okay.
A little different.
So it's in the general fund
It is, it's a tab.
line? Tab,
Yes.
okay.
It's in the operating
Okay.
budget, right?
Okay.
All right. Any questions for the assessor? Okay, Ed, thanks for waiting.
For the 29th. Forget that.
All set.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Only a week away.
And we'll have the grand list, I guess, by the 29th? 29th, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay. Tax collector. Ms. Milano.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Morning, Debbie, how you doing?
Good. Okay, good morning. You have my budget, the tax collector's budget in front of you, and it is coming in lower this year. There was a reduction in the motor vehicle. They've taken away a big fee from us because of the new DMV civils program.
Could you explain that a little bit?
There was a charge that we used to get from motor vehicle, and they no longer charge the towns anymore for that. It went by population, and we're now online with motor vehicle. It's called the DMV civils. I'm sure you've heard all of that.
All the issues with that system?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But that fee is no longer being charged to the town, yeah. Yeah.
Is that a first?
No, I did put it in the.
I know we
yeah,
did
yeah.
that. The first that the states reduced the fee that we pay?
Well,
We're doing more work for them, so there was
actually, I did see a
catch.
line item called DMV fees. So
Yeah.
did they, for the online services, so they took away the other fee, but now we pay
Yeah.
a fee for the online services?
Right now, when somebody is delinquent and they pay their bill, we have to go in right away and release them. We're in real time with them. Yep.
So they're charging you the $350 for that, is that what that is?
No, that's, that fee, that's for their service. To be able to go onto the system, we can look up registrations, plate numbers.
Okay. I have nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Okay. All right, Deb, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
You too.
You do the same.
Next up will be Town Clerk. Anna Dwyer. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning.
Morning.
What do we have, Anna?
Ready?
I'm
Oh,
ready
okay.
for you.
Well, mine is pretty simple, too. It hasn't really increased much. The only thing that's really gone up slightly is the recording expense due to an increase in our land record system. The monthly fees went up about $135 a month. But our salaries are basically going to be remaining the same. We lost an assistant, and our newest, the girl who we replaced her with, obviously will be coming in at a lower salary, so the salary shouldn't increase by too much. But everything else is pretty much the same.
Great. Any questions, comments?
Anna, the recording expense fees going up, but should be offset by additional revenues that we have projected, I
We
believe?
hope so,
Yeah.
yes. We hope
Okay.
so, yeah. Those are always hard to predict, but
Yeah, so you had an increase both on recording fees and conveyance
we're always
tax.
optimistic.
Right. I did note the other night at our Board of Finance meeting that conveyance fees are running ahead of budget this year, right?
Well, we had a very big sale
Is it
last
one-
May.
was it-
and
was it one?
It was, we had like $81,000 in conveyance for the town of Guilford alone in that, from that one sale.
That was in May?
Yeah, it was in May. It was the Gables.
When does that get recorded, though? If it was in May,
It was May last year,
Yeah, that
so it
was
was,
recorded
yeah,
last
yeah,
Last
yeah, so
year,
it was last year.
okay.
So it's not gonna be in this year. Obviously, we can't expect a sale
Right.
like that every year.
yeah.
I wish we could.
But you're already,
Yeah.
at this point, you're ahead.
Yes,
you're
we were
of
ahead,
budget.
we were ahead this last year,
This-
yes.
Well, even this year, you're ahead.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. This is the first year in 7 years we're running way ahead of schedule. So,
We're not asking enough questions, is that
I
what
guess
happened?
not. That's what happens when they come in without
Fair.
making huge increases.
Exactly.
All right, our next set of departments come up at 9:45. So I'm just gonna take a break until
That's fine.
then. If anybody has any objections, let me know.
That works.
And we'll just call the departments up in the meantime. Mike?
You're gonna call the rest of them or just us?
Yeah, oh, come on. yeah.
Simple.
Okay, Mike, we'll wait until, we'll take another break then. Okay, we'll start with the building department, Bill Tody. Morning, Bill. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, just take us through your budget, please.
Okay, basically, it's the same budget as last year with a minor adjustment in the salaries. So basically the change is a little about $1,200 more than last year. And I think last year we hit it pretty close, so. Not very exciting.
Sheila, can you explain the 2% drop on the secretary's salary line item? I know we are in negotiations on GEA, but several of these have been showing a reduction.
The commission secretaries, the boards and
Now,
commission
the
secretaries?
secretary building.
New- Replacement of
New
the
hire.
lowest-
New
lowest
hire.
salary.
New hire.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And working out very well.
Great.
Revenue you see going up a little bit? I know it's a estimate, but,
Yeah, I see things been holding on pretty good. We've had, the 14-15 was a sparkling year. A lot of that was due to the Royal Tractor Supply, the Guilford Commons. That was a big slug. But this year we should do, we're about 50% in the revenue section at this point, so we're pretty much on target. And the projects are pretty much where we think they're gonna be. So we probably are gonna be a good shape, I'd say, this year. Not, not as much as 14-15, but still we should be on the mark. And with the building, the potential for the 16-17 year, looks like that the west end of town is gonna start building up. So we have a lot of opportunity down there.
So, Bill, as 66 High Street continues to develop, you would see additional building fees in that project, I assume. And the reason I highlight that project, because it's a pretty huge project for us.
Yeah, they've got, there's 4 basic buildings. The old building, which is being worked on right now, they've got an accelerated schedule. I guess they've got most of the units sold. They want to get that thing occupied. There's actually the next building, next new one, first new one, the hole, the foundation hole is dug and ready to accept concrete. Excuse me, and they need to get that foundation above ground, and then they're gonna continue and dig the next one. So they're on a pretty ambitious schedule right now, so we should see probably permit fees for the next 2 buildings in this fiscal year.
Okay.
And they're pretty substantial.
Yeah. Good enough.
Bill, I understand that most of our neighboring, that we charge our fees on a square foot basis, and most of our neighboring towns tend to set their fees on a per dollar of building cost basis, with, again, I believe the result that, it's like Madison's fees are substantially higher than ours. Is that accurate?
Well, there's trade-offs. We do the cost, we base it on a cost of construction fee for all the commercial work. For the residential work, we do a square footage, and the bulk of the high paperwork in our office is through the residential part of the building. And because we don't leave, if we leave anything on the table, it's minimal. And because we have our system arranged so that it works on a square footage basis, it's very easy for the clerical staff to accept the permit fees, and it eliminates the need for a building official to sit there and figure out all these fees that we're talking about, minimal changes in dollars. So basically, if we switch to that type of a system across the board, we have to get another person. I'd be sitting there figuring out fees on a continuous basis, or we'd have to have another clerical person in there helping do that. So we're trading the efficiency for a few bucks, and we've compared our technique to other towns on a regular basis, and we're not leaving any substantial amounts on the table.
Okay.
So.
Just to give you some perspective, you said a meaningful number. What's the magnitude when we talk about fees on a project like 66 High Street? What are building permit fees? Thousands of dollars, 30, 40?
Well, yeah, I think the first building, if I recollect, was like 36 grand. And that included, that was basically a total for all the different, they paid it in one lump, so that they wouldn't have the individual contractors coming in and pulling anything more than what we call a clerical fee, which is just issuing paperwork that shows that a particular electrician or plumber was on the job. So I would imagine each building's going to be 30 to 40 grand
So we can
in fees.
anticipate another 120 coming in over the next period of time.
Yeah, it's in that range. Yeah, yeah, it's in the magnitude of a Guilford Commons.
Any further questions? No. Okay. Bill, thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming up a little early, by the way. Okay. Next department, Natural Resources, Kevin McGee. Morning, Kevin.
Morning. Morning.
I think it's still morning, right?
I'll talk to you offline, but I think there's a lot of, the buildings, the contractors, and the architects in town think we're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Okay.
I've heard just the opposite complaints that were too high.
Madison charges twice what, their fees are twice.
also an open problem in the past because they overshot.
Well, yeah, but that was a different issue.
Kevin, wait.
Okay, waiting to make sure everybody's on their pages here. Bill indicated it's a similar budget that I had last year. Not too much for changes. It covers salaries of full-time employees, board and commission secretaries, and those had contractual increases. Travel expense, which is just for parking-related expenses if I have to go to Hartford or New Haven for meetings. GIS went up a little bit, partly due to the standards of accuracy of the plans need to be changed from simple tracing a line off of assessor's map to actually doing the borders, calculating the borders out on an A2 survey. So it tightens up things a little bit there. The support on, so that's where all the changes came in GIS. Advertising, that's for legal notices for planning and zoning, or actually inland wetlands public hearings, or actually just the meeting agendas on the newspapers. And it's basically a state requirement, so we can't get around that. I know there's been talk to the legislature over the years of trying to change that, but it hasn't been changed yet. We have no contracted services. Office supplies, this covers the office supplies for the Natural Resources Department, plus any expenses for several boards and commissions, the Ag Commission, the Conservation Commission, Tree Advisory, were all included in that number. And that pretty much covers, in terms of our office supplies, covers the, from producing the maps that I have, paper for the large printers, the ink for large printers, and other supplies that we need to carry out our jobs. Tree removal, looking for an increase over last year's, and actually it's the same amount as requested last year, which probably got cut back on. So looking to try to increase $5,000 to $75,000, and that's, to tell you the truth, was like 3 more trees to be cut for that price. Dues and membership, that went up slightly due to increase in membership fees to a couple organizations. Education and training, we actually had a decrease in that one. Reevaluating the conferences and stuff, and the number of people that have been attending from the different commissions, so I cut that back a little bit. Vehicle maintenance has stayed the same. There's 2 vehicles being utilized, so basically it comes down to $1,500 per vehicle for gas and repairs and stuff. And open space stewardship, this covers the upkeep of the our trail systems, and provides included in that this year I added public education and outreach for Conservation Commission, and that's the budget of $207,365.93.
Mr. Cameron had a question?
I do, on the aging population of trees.
Yep.
My question is, are you not being overly modest about what you need in that area? Because it seems that excluding your italicized, natural catastrophe possibility, it seems to me that you need more.
Yeah, I would go for more. I know it's been told it's going to be a tight budget season, so I'm trying to, I guess, be conservative on it. But yeah, I probably could go with another probably $20,000.
As opposed to 5,000.
Correct. Like you said, you're looking at, like I said, you look at average cost of a tree removal, you're looking at about $12,000 to $15,000.
And where possible, Public Works does contribute. Sometimes you can wangle Public Works if they're in the area, if they have some time to help do that, which doesn't affect his budget, but Public Works. But Yeah.
If it's a taller tree.
It is an issue.
If it's a taller
It
tree,
is
they
an
can't
issue.
get it, and if it's near wires, you need a bucket, we don't have those
Right.
services there. We've been fortunate that CMP's been doing, trimming, and they've been doing what they call ETT, which is enhanced tree trimming, which is, if there's larger trees within a certain distance of the wires, and they believe it poses a hazard to their system, they've been removing those as they go along. And some of the trees are healthier trees, but if they take too much off the tree, it actually causes the tree's downfall over time, so those are also get removed over time, so we don't end up with that expense. I think last year, they did, I think it was Little Meadow Road, or no, Hoop Hole Road, Lake Drive, and I think about 70 trees or so came down as their efforts up there. And this past year, we probably had 20, 30 trees on the southern top portion of town with their tree removal. So we've been getting some work out of assistance from them with their tree work, is helping us on our end here.
Clarification, you said 12 to 15, I thought you said 12 to 15, I think you said 1,000, 1,500. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
that's for the viewing
Yeah.
audience, make sure they
Yeah.
realize that. I was gonna say, that's only like 5 trees. Second question is, do you have a for example, for the newer members of the board and for some of us that can't recall, a list of the trees that are coming? Do you have a running list of trees that you plan on bringing down this year? And you do say it's tough to accurately predict the number, but do you have an active list that's going on?
No, I don't maintain an active list.
Okay.
Maintain an active list.
Could you go do the process of how you identify those trees?
The trees that get identified for removal are trees that we see, that public calls me on. I have a tree which has been dropping branches in front of my house. Can you take a look at it? And I'll look at it, and if it's pretty much at this rate with the budget and stuff, if it's pretty much 80% dead, it gets removed. But if it's dropping branches, but it still looks fairly on the healthier side, that's when it might go in my head, okay, I might need to take that one down next year, or has another couple of years coming to this one. Other ones, like I said, are ones that just quickly died over time, or quickly, due to some sort of shock, weather shock or something like that.
Calls will come into various town agencies, Selectman's office,
Public
Kevin's
Works.
office, Public Works,
Right.
and it'll be funneled to Kevin, eventually go out and he'll take a look at it and make the assessment.
And like I say, in the next couple of years, our biggest threat and our biggest issues will be coming up is gonna be the ash trees. The MO ash borer has been found in town. There went to conferences, and there's about an 8-year cycle for it. It's gonna be like the hemlocks. There's no pest or predator for that bug. So we're gonna have a bunch of those dying out within, like I said, the next, probably starting to see a climb coming and then plateauing out, and probably 6 years or so, probably 5 to 6 years from now, we'll probably have our highest demand for tree removal with the ash trees.
So in the future, what do you see that doing to do you see it adding a few $1,000s? Do you see it doubling?
I see
Your estimate?
multiples there, yeah. It's hard to tell, because we don't really have a full tree survey of saying,
Right.
Westlake Avenue has X many maples, ash trees, birches or something like that. We don't really have a study along that lines.
Right.
I mean, I've been asked about lists and stuff like that, and once you have a list written down and that tree falls and hits a car, it's a known hazard, and it increases liability, so we don't maintain lists.
Okay.
Kevin, can you just clarify something that you mentioned earlier, that, you may get a call from a resident who says branches are falling on my property? This isn't a service we're providing to residents to remove
No,
their
these are
trees.
town trees within the right of way.
Okay, that's the kind of clarification.
Yes,
we
yes,
need.
yes.
You brought that up.
Thank you. Thank you, my call, I'm gonna be off the hook now.
Yeah.
And part of it
Provide
goes,
service for.
and part of it goes into is there's a tree or dead tree in front of my property. Part of the research I do is it a private tree or is it a public tree before I even take it down?
Right.
Which means I come back to the office, I try to go through the land records and do my best of judgment. Is it a town tree or not a town tree? I mean, because it's no set standard of right-of-ways in the town of Guilford. There's no such thing as 25 feet off the center line is a property line. They vary. One road could be 3 feet, another road could be 30 or 40 feet, so it all varies in town here.
Kevin, in your budget here to remove trees, that includes the stump as well, correct?
No.
It does not?
No. In the, just clarify that, if it's along the roads and side roads here, no, but if it's potentially a trip hazard somewhere, maybe like the center of town, next to a sidewalk, and the thing's so close to the sidewalk where talking with somebody might trip over it, that stump I might take out. But if it's in front of a house, like on Little Meadow Road, and it's not between the road and sidewalk or something like that, that stump will remain in place.
How costly is it to remove a stump if you had to?
It's almost half the price of the tree, if not more.
So
I mean,
where
it
do
could
you
be
incorporate that into budget? In your budget, where do you put that expense?
The stump removal?
Yes.
That just goes under, like I said, the one I said between a road and a sidewalk is part of the tree removal budget there.
Yeah.
But we don't go up in front of residents' houses when we take a tree down, we just cut it flush to the ground as they safely can without injuring themselves or their equipment.
Okay.
And if a homeowner wants it removed, we allow them to then take that cost. But we're removing the imminent hazard to the traveling public of removing the tree. That's my main goal.
Kevin, is there any, for open space stewardship, is there any, do you go out and survey the properties, or is there one that gets more use than the others, or can you tell?
The open space stewardship, we have a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission, the Land Stewardship Committee, which kind of walks all the property. They have members assigned to different trails and stuff. They walk it, they let us know which areas are going to need work on it, which areas the brush is grown in, we need to cut back the brush on, or there's a wooden bridge that has bad boards, needs to be replaced, or there's a wet spot that we need to create a crossing or find a way to divert the trail. So there's volunteer land stewards which help kind of direct us on that point there.
Gary, I would just add a couple of things. There is a slow, but I hope steady process. We started in Shore Drive of the town selling some of what I call orphan pieces that have been acquired by tax lots. It raises a little bit of money. They're not worth a lot. Typically, a neighbor would buy it and add, 10,000 feet to the property. But it removes the liability, because a lot of these have dead trees on it, or dead trees, or whatever, and if they have to come down, it's the cost of the town. If we sold it to the neighbor, it becomes their responsibility to deal with it. So we have sold and have under contract a couple of lots, and I've been working with Pam, and we may try to sell some others. They're of no open space value. They're just little pieces that have been acquired one way or another over decades.
Good. Okay, any further questions for Kevin?
Like I said, the only other thing is, like I said, we do have a revenue stream. It's very low to other departments, but we're proposing in $11,000. And it's actually been slowly increasing over the past couple of years. 13-14 was $9,047, and the year before that was $10,000. The previous year was $10,509. So we're pretty much coming close to our projected budget for revenue, and it's been a lot of little projects with us. It hasn't been during that period of time any major development projects for the permit number. So it's just homeowners doing work on their properties there.
Good.
So,
thank you.
Yep.
Good job, Kevin. Thank you very much. Okay. Next department would be planning and zoning. George Croft. Good morning, George.
Good morning.
Morning, George.
I think you can see we have a slight decrease in our total proposed budget. Reflects the fact that we have a new staff person filling the administrative assistant slot, who's come in at a slightly lower pay grade. 95% of planning and zoning budget is full-time salaries. Small amount of funding for part-time clerical assistants. Not projecting any increase in that. The other line items are very modest, not projecting any significant change in any of them, except with regard to education and training, which goes to the point I made earlier about a new person coming in to fill the administrative assistant role. That person has already started in this fiscal year with some training through the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers, and I'd like to continue that into the next year. So I'm requesting a slight increase in the education and training budget. Everything else is basically the same. In terms of revenues, I think I was a little bit over-optimistic in terms of increase in development activities for the 2015-16 budget. I think will be slightly less than what was proposed or anticipated, and estimating that our revenues will be basically the same for 16-17. Any questions?
I'm all set. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, Health Department. Dennis Johnson, Health Director. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning. We have the WPA also.
Our budget request is less than last year, approximately 9.6% less. And that's basically because we have new staff, replace a retired individual. Salary was about $20,000 less than the retired individual. The rest of our budget line items are pretty much stayed the same except for a few of them. I've increased the expenses in travel up to $100. The new staff member that we have has to go through a couple years of training, travel, attending seminars, and so I've added some money in that budget line item, anticipating some costs for the next year. Certified lab work, I increased that by about 7%. Also for water samples that we take, generally those samples are taken at the town's community wells we have at Bittner Park and Lake Quantapug. Those are considered public water supplies, and we have to sample those 4 times a year. And then this year the EPA's announced that we have to do a pre-opening sample next year, so there's going to be extra money required to do the pre-opening sample. Mosquito control is contractual as part of a 3-year contract. I think there's another 2 years left in that contract, and that's a set fee of $19,500. Printing staying the same. Uniform and clothing allowance, I've added $300 to that, mainly because the union requirement is that sanitarian has to have a clothing and uniform allowance, so that's a contractual thing. The new sanitarian will probably be requesting reimbursement for clothing, doing soil testing, restaurant inspections, and so forth, so that's added. Office supplies stayed the same. Education and training, again, increased at $60, anticipating expenses for training seminars, travel expenses, educational conferences for new sanitarian. And vehicle maintenance, I increased that about $200, 15%. Our vehicles are aging. And it seems like we sort of underestimate that each year, so I added a couple $100 to that. It's hard to anticipate what that expense will be. So the total budget request is $214,436.80, which is a decrease of about $22,960 from last year, or a 9.6% decrease. As far as our revenue stream goes, keeping that pretty much the same as last year. We'll probably be getting a big sanitary permit for the 66 High Street, but that'll probably be in this year's fiscal year. And for 2016-17,
Although there's a lot of projects that are kind of in the wings waiting to happen, I don't know if they're going to be completed or if there'll be income from those next year. But so I'm keeping it about the same, increasing it slightly to $31,620. I anticipate there will be some more septic repairs done in town and some commercial buildings that might need some septic work next year. So a slight increase in that. Otherwise, the budget is pretty stable. We're having a grant this year from the Public Health Preparedness Grants. I'm using $5,000 of that to offset salary. So that brings down my salary line items about $5,000. That's, any questions? We're glad to answer them.
Looks good.
Food trucks that come in, pay a food permit fee?
Yeah, food trucks or vending trucks, we do charge fees for those. I think it's a $25 fee, and that's good for a year. Yep. We're seeing more of those, but it seems like for every truck that is new, there's another one that, closes up, so it's not a steady growth in that area.
Pollution arose, of course, up in Mulberry Point and Tubbs Point, and the number of the degree of soil testing that was up there for any kind of contamination. And one of the complaints that was registered by some of the residents was that the septic wasn't tested on perhaps but 10% of that area. Do you plan to get more involved in what you might call suspicious areas or potentially affected areas?
In Mulberry Tuttle's Point area, as part of the water main project? Yeah, we've started looking at all the lots in that area to look at the size of their septic systems to see if there are, really substandard systems in that area. And then those will be identified, and the homeowners would be, notified that their system is maybe inadequate, and that they might want to consider water conservation or possibly repairing it or enlarging it if necessary. But most of the systems in that area have been repaired or are pretty substantial from what we've seen so far. There may be, a half a dozen homes that have smaller dry wells or, small cesspools that may need to be upgraded, but we can't force them to upgrade them unless there's a failure. But we are addressing that by doing a survey right now of the 146 homes.
Just quickly, not to digress too far, but he mentioned food trucks. Don't we limit the number of licenses we grant to food trucks in town?
No.
Are we able to limit that?
No.
Okay. So anybody can drive in with a food truck and pay a $25 fee? Is that?
Well, they have to get
No,
it.
it's more than $25.
Oh, I thought he said $25.
Well, that's the food, but there's also the police department has a vending fee. Planning and zoning might have one also. And then they have to go, they have to be inspected by all departments. They just can't drive in and set up, but there's a whole process for that. But.
So you can't bring your yogurt truck up here with
No, I'm
pay
not,
$25.
no, I'm not doing that. I wasn't even thinking of that, but that's a good idea.
You like yogurt in front of your store? In front of your office? That's a good choice.
Any questions for Dennis?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. All right. Pam, since you're here, let's start with you on the legal. And, Karen's inside, so we'll get her later.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I think what I'll do is just go through it.
You've been listening to everybody else, so you know what to do.
Yep. General legal expense, holding the request at 40,000 as I had it from last year. You know, you can see a couple of bullets underneath general legal expense about what type of expenses come into play. Land use matters come into play here. Our zoning appeals are not covered by KERMA and our insurance, so this falls within that. Also, certain police matters, certain police FOI requests, they also fall under general legal. And we do have a couple of matters ongoing right now on that. We also have some possible projected town real estate matters. There's a couple of matters that we're kicking around, and if that proceeds, then there'll be outside council expenses with respect to those. And we do, you know, currently have the Water Street project, which requires some temporary easements and title work, so that has been outsourced. And then also, with respect to some of the school projects, depending on the sophistication of the project, we need outside counsel to prepare the contracts for that, so that comes into play here, as well as any kind of bid disputes. So that is that line. Court stenographer is kind of a standard. That has to do with zoning appeals and the requirement of a record. That's labor negotiations. You'll see that that's an increase to 100. I think it was 70. There's a number of bargaining units, contracts that are coming up. And I did consult with LeClaire Ryan, and they expect, you know, those to be ongoing and you know, could possibly go to arbitration, so those expenses are built into that. I just pointing out some of the bullets. You have grievances. Police grievances fall within this. Historically, they did not, but the last couple of years they have. Other employee grievances, which again, not covered by KERMA. Heart and hypertension cases, we do have several, and they're not covered by KERMA. As I pause on that, it was, not to my knowledge, there was some enclosures in the legal budget notebooks that were backing up the budget. If you would, they were confidential, so if you wouldn't mind pulling those out of your notebooks, we're gonna collect those. Thank you. The judgments and losses, that's again a standard. It explains it. It's a reserve account for judgments not covered by the town's insurance or which exceed the town's coverage limitations. Assessment revaluation claims. I'm, you know, having that. Last year it was 150, down to 75,000. I did consult Chuck Anders from LeClaire Ryan is handling these for us. And I also consulted our tax assessor, and based on prior revals and what happens in year 3 or whatever, they felt that this was a realistic number, 75. Dues and memberships, that's pretty standard. The Capital Region Purchasing Council fee actually was waived last year because another, Joe, was it Scrog?
The South Central Region Council of Governments, which is our 15-member town organization we belong to, picked up that tab.
Picked up the tab last year. We made a call. They said they won't really know until April if their budget will allow them to pick it up again. So I keep it in there for that. And then education and training is just minimal. A couple of conferences.
Okay. Any questions?
You touched on the
Comments?
75, and I see it's down from 150 on the assessment reval. What is this, year 3 or into year 4?
I assume, maybe incorrectly, that a lot of that 75 is due to ongoing,
Ongoing
claims,
cases.
ongoing pending claims right now, as opposed to new,
Yes.
because I would expect there to be very few.
Yes,
at
in this
stage of
year,
the cycle.
exactly. And in fact, in the 10/1/2013 assessment, that was the initial year after the reval, we had 67 appeals, and there's only 2 remaining right now that are open. So those could go further and be costly.
So the bulk of that is probably for that.
Correct. And then in the 10/1/2014 assessment, the following years, 29 properties appealed, and there's 17 remaining there. So we have 19 outstanding, yes.
And then the possible acquisition of land at the transfer station, is that to acquire an adjacent parcel next to enlarge the transfer station, or do we not own that property?
I can
at the
speak
transfer
to that.
station?
Yeah, that, there's a boundary issue between the transfer station and an adjoining property owner. Apparently, it was never, surveyed in the way that we would like things to be surveyed years and years ago. So we're determining whether to, we have outside counsel working with us on that, about how to resolve that issue. And one of the resolutions may be, you do kind of a deed swap to set the boundary.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Pam.
Which you want?
Yeah, which page?
Yeah, I'm gonna-
Ryan, memo?
Yeah.
You want the email?
And there's an email after it.
Any emails as well?
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for taking those out, I appreciate it. Okay, Board of Selectmen, Karen Kirsch.
The secret is safe,
All right. I knew I could trust you.
especially when you pick it up.
Charles Andrews' email as well.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll show you after. This one here. Okay, Karen, want to take us through it?
Sure.
Four pages? Yeah.
With one exception, the Board of Selectmen budget, one of the few increases is, that we're asking for is in the code maintenance line. Other than that, any increases that you see are due to contractual obligations, either such as a lease for our copier or salary increases. That code maintenance line, we're asking for an update to what's called our Laserfiche program. It's a program that allows us to scan minutes into an OCR, optical character reader, searchable database. And right now, I think the last time we were able to add to the database was, 2010 or 2011 minutes, Trey? Yeah, so we haven't been able to add to that program, and it's a valuable tool, and we would like to be able to upgrade it if we could. Other than that, we've tried to hold everything at last year or to decrease a couple of lines, such as printing. Every year, we seem not to need to have to print as many annual reports because people can access it online. We do print a few for people, but we've been able to decrease that number. We've decreased advertising. We had several ordinance changes this year, which is sort of an anomaly, and so we're not expecting that again next year. So that's why we've been able to try to decrease that line item. And as I said, everything else we try to hold the same as last year. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Karen, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Human Resources. Right, you're right to say, no, you don't have to move.
Chair. Okay, Human Resources, Employees Benefits, our combined budget, although we're talking about possibly separating that in the future. The salaries are contractual, as well as including the administrative assistant who's in the GEA, and as we've mentioned before, that's being considered later, which is the next line, which is reserve for personnel, where we put in the monies that are projected for the salary increases that'll take place due to contract negotiations. We have one contract outstanding right now, which is the dispatchers, which is still being negotiated. Hopefully that gets done before June. And then we will be beginning quite soon both the police and the GEA contracts coming up. And as I mentioned yesterday, that when we resolve the GEA contract at some point, that would also affect a good portion of our part-time employees who follow the same classification schedule as the GEA does. So there'll be some adjustments there as well. There's some backups in your books. The first one would have to do with pension. And pension is not just so everyone's aware, there is a decrease in this line item, but the pension is not just included in the defined benefit plan that we're very much aware of. If you look at the backup sheet that Sheila has prepared, the pension contribution is also for the Teamsters. We have a contribution there. We have deferred compensation for the first selectman. We have actuarial fees. We have some legal fees, volunteer firemen's financial security plan. Then the pension contributions for both town and police. And we are also increasing fairly substantially this coming year the defined contribution matching that the town is doing with new employees who are on the defined contribution plan. So you can see there's some ups and downs within that entire budget, but the total is a decrease for this coming fiscal year. That's going to be helpful to us all. The next line item is the heart and hypertension. Pam mentioned this a little bit, that there's still a couple of potential claims out there have not been settled. They just kind of stick around, and we've got to deal with them at some point. The retirement benefits is for 2 individuals that's gone on for a number of years. It's a separate line item that we just continue. The FICA is basically a calculation based on our overall salaries. You'll see that there is an increase there. It's not as great as the increase you might see in the overall salaries, and the reason for that is all our part-time employees coming on board are put on what's called the Premier Plan. It's a Social Security alternative plan, which reduces our obligations to Social Security and sets a small nest egg for those people into a retirement account for themselves. The unemployment compensation is up a bit. This is because we've been seeing an uptick in our unemployment comp. There's been a few former employees who have some significant unemployment claims that we've had to deal with and put on the on that. And because we're self-funded for that, we just get billed as we go when there are claims for unemployment. Yes, sure, Matt.
I mentioned that line is affected by part-time seasonal help who don't return to school, causing constant unemployment benefits to be extended by the town. Is there a way to contractually?
No, there's not. We've checked into that. We can't.
You hire somebody for a seasonal position.
Right. Yeah, this has been happening to us, quite frankly, more and more. It is not, the way I wrote that may not be clear. If you are in education, if we hire summer help that are school-age children, both, not just children, but young adults who are high school or college, if they return to high school or college, they are not entitled to unemployment. So it doesn't include those people. What it does include, though, we do have a number of employees who we hire for a long season, if you will, usually from early spring to late fall, both in terms of parks and rec maintenance, golf course maintenance, golf course clubhouse. Those individuals who are let go, if you will, when the winter comes, are eligible for unemployment, and we do see those claims come in. It's not substantial, but they do add up, and it has been adding up over the time. We've also, without getting into individual situations, there have been some people who have left the town's employment who have been eligible for unemployment, and it's been, if they're a full-time employee, that's a big uptick for us when we don't have that much, we really don't have that much unemployment, but it kind of will.
So these seasonal employees that we bring on, are they typically receiving benefits as well?
No, they're strictly.
So is there any consideration for 1099 in them?
No, I think from my understanding, I could check with Labor Council. I do not believe that they are eligible for that. I believe they have to be considered as employees, unless we were hiring somebody who actually had their own business. You know, we're not hiring tree services, we're not hiring landscape companies. We're hiring
As long as you dictate their hours and work schedule, the IRS will tell you that they are not 1099able. They're W-2 employees. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They basically file for unemployment for what's the extended period?
I mean, at one time it was a year. Or
It's pretty much, it can go for that long.
Really?
Typically, most of these people, it's not a real long time for two reasons. Either they come back to work for us in the spring, or they're finding it, if they're not coming back to work for us, it's because they usually found another job. Unless they're an employee who we've hired and we decide not to rehire, which does happen. There are sometimes that after we go through a season, the particular supervisor will decide that particular individual is not something we want to hire back. It could stay on for longer, but typically those people do find other positions. We do see an uptick, if you will, after they leave until the spring.
have we had anyone that's basically a seasonal employee that collected for a year?
No, I don't think we've had, I mean, I could go back and check, Peter. I don't think there's anybody who's been on for that long from a seasonal standpoint. We have had some people who, we have had some full-time employees that were unable to find jobs, and we have had them on for some time, yes, and for the maximum amount of time. When we get notified from Department of Labor. It lets us know what our weekly obligation is, also what our maximum obligation will be. Most of the times we do not go to that maximum obligation, but like I say, I'm trying to show based on what our experience has been in the past year, there's going to be, you know, it's not a large line item, but it certainly is an uptick that I would expect, and I wanted to make sure I try to budget for that as accurately as I could, because we really don't know what's going to happen next year, but based on what we've seen. Okay. The next item was retirement sick leave. This is a contractual line item for certain full-time individuals that do have the sick leave payments. We're seeing the reason the line item is increasing, even though the number of employees who are eligible for this is decreasing, the line item is increasing because we're getting to that point where we're seeing people retiring who have been eligible for this. So it's there's an uptick in this area as well. Conversely, the next line item, longevity, we're seeing that starting to drop off since the longevity has been eliminated in most of the contracts or frozen in contracts. So we're seeing a slight decrease in longevity payments as that continues to whittle away. The medical insurance, once again, there's some backup information for you. This is based on our current situations. We're self-insured, as I think all of you realize, so we watch this very carefully, including our stop-loss coverage and our medical expenses, both to the town employees as well as there's medical costs for Teamsters. They are town employees as well, but they're on a separate medical plan. So you can look at those changes, and we're seeing, you know, pretty much overall about a 7% increase, which has not been as bad as we've seen in years past, but we still have some issues. Obviously, medical costs, as everyone is aware, continue to rise. But we have been we've had significant contributions from our employees as well to help offset some of those medical costs as well. And the other thing that's starting to take a little bit of a turn down is the reimbursement to the employees that do not take insurance. We've adjusted those amounts in contracts for new employees. They're not as lucrative as they were before, so we're starting to see a decrease in that area as well. That'll help in this area. Life insurance. Yeah, I'm sorry.
A couple of things on the medical thing. One, are you concerned about some kind of cost curve where you reduce the benefits to a point where it's not worth it for somebody to opt out?
No. No. I'm not concerned.
I'm going to tell you from previous experience at an employer, that happened. And you know, if the value of medical benefits was $3,000 in 2000, the value of medical benefits in 2015 should be somewhat higher.
Mm-hmm.
But if the curve, you're taking the benefits in terms of what you pay them down, there will be a point where it's a disincentive.
That question has come up. I have yet to see it happen. It's been discussed. The difference is, it's not a case of just saying, okay, you're not paying me enough not to take the plan. To get on the plan, you know, for our employees are now paying an average of 18%. So if they have insurance elsewhere, even if we weren't paying them anything, it doesn't really pay for them to stay on our plan unless they're not getting adequate coverage elsewhere, in which case they should get on our plan and off the other plan. So, but.
The other question I had was, you're showing a 7.1% increase. We met with the Board of Education on Tuesday evening on their budget, and they're showing 4.57. I suspect that has to do with the fact that the distribution has changed. They have 4 less contracts going in, and you have 4 more going, or they have more than that, excuse me. They dropped by 18 contracts, rather, and you guys picked up 4. So does that explain the
That's
differential?
part of it. I think Sheila's gonna may wanna address the other part of it. There's some factors to look at.
You're right, it used to be 8317, and we had that for years. And now we're actually allocating it based on the actual contracts, so they have changed, and these are actual contracts. The reason the Board of Ed has a lower increase is because they've cut their contribution at the beginning of the year by about $700,000. So they're already paying a lower amount. So technically, they will have more. They will have an increase over what they're paying now.
Okay.
And that's due to the HSA participants. They're actually paying that 700. They're still paying the 700,000, but it's not. It's on the other
side.
The other side.
Other side of the ledger. Okay.
Just to clarify, on the opt-out and the reduction of the reimbursement, Matt, I interpreted it differently from Matt, and I just wanted, just for clear. Did you say that you reduced the benefits, and Matt was concerned that that would reduce the number of people that opt out, or did you reduce the payment, the opt-out payment, which I think is $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000?
Well, it's actually for most new employees, it's only a one payment. Depends on the contract they're in, but it basically is a one payment based on a single person. We no longer pay based on a family. We're basing it on a lower percentage of what our cost is. But to get to your question, Ken, I thought I understood. Did I not understand your question, Matt?
Yeah, you're reducing what you pay them.
We're reducing what we're paying them, yes.
Right, so they're not
For
not
new
reducing the
employees.
benefits. I thought.
Well, no, I was talking about benefits being worth a certain amount of money.
No, the benefits.
You're reducing the opt-out
The opt-out payment, yes. The medical benefits are the same. We have not changed the medical benefit package.
And maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but can we talk or address the anticipated savings from the HSA that's been adopted in several of the contracts? And
Well, the
if
HSA
we
has
were
only been adopted, Ken, in the Board of Education contracts, and I can't address that because they have to.
Because it's ongoing, so
the
you.
Board of Ed.
Okay.
We have not adopted that at this
So
point.
you can't talk about potential savings in the event we go that route?
That would be part of contract negotiations, so at this point, no. Okay. On the life insurance, just looking at it from what our actuals have been, we look at a very slight decrease in that. It's pretty well the same. The cost is not going up. The number of employees is about the same, just looking at it based on what it actually was. The employee assistance program is going up by a couple bucks only because the number of employees covered under that is going up by a couple. The wage transfer reimbursement has been figured for FICA medical insurance from Waste Transfer Station. There's a decrease in that at this point, mostly because the individuals there some of them are newer, so their salaries are less than what we've seen in the past. Our printing costs are up a bit. This is for the notices that go up on the bulletin boards to show all the legal notices we have to show for state and federal laws. Office supplies are the same. I've been able to reduce the dues and memberships line item slightly, but I've increased our education and training both for myself in the meetings and conferences, as well as for the administrative assistant who's been picking up additional education as we go along. And that concludes the Human Resources Employee Benefits budget request, unless there's any further questions, which I'd be happy to answer.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I did have another question on the retirement sick leave. In your documentation that you provided, the budget request is for $133,000, which includes utilizing $57,745 from fund balance. So does that mean the total is really $190,000?
Yes, that is a correct statement. Yes.
And it's just it's a guess. It's an estimate. We don't know who's.
We don't know who's retiring. We know we've had a couple of significant. I say significant. We've had a couple of retirements this year that have significantly utilize that particular item. My anticipation is that there'll be more next year. It could, may or may not happen. Nobody's got forced retirement, so if they decide to retire, that's the best guesstimate. We're trying to, talking to department heads and talking to other people around, trying to get an idea of the number of retirements for the next year. But yes, if we had to utilize all the fund balance, my request would be for the $133,000.
Well, Sheila, procedurally, what are we doing? Are we allocating this directly to the fund balance, or is this an operating expense? Procedurally, how are you handling it?
This is how we've done it in the past. If the retirement sick leave payments happen to exceed what we budget, hopefully that the whole employee benefits budget can absorb that. If it doesn't, then we would do a transfer. The money is actually committed for retirement sick leave. It's not that we're taking from undesignated fund balance.
Understood.
I'm trying not to, we have gone over in prior years and we haven't touched the reserve.
Right.
So that's what we're hoping we're, just being a little conservative, and if we're not, that we have other ways of covering.
When was the last time we made a direct contribution into the reserve fund?
It's been a while because we've had to use anything that's possibly left in that line to cover other items, but I can tell you that 25% of what we think the liability is for everyone is reserved, and I think that's a pretty safe reserve.
So that 57 represents 25%, is what you're saying?
There's 257,000.
In long-term liabilities?
No, there's 257,000 in the reserve.
In the reserve account?
Yeah, we're only requesting the possibility of using 57 of the 257.
So basically, you're saying we got about $1 million worth of liability?
For everyone.
For everyone.
And that's capped.
Capped because
right.
contractually, we're not adding to that.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. The 320, just to clarify, the 320,000 that's reserved for salaries adjustments. Am I correct in thinking that it's the 35, potentially, the 35 police officers, the 7 local 137, and the 65 GEA employees?
You had 65 full-time GEA. You've got to add to that the part-time GEA, which is probably about another 20 people, or at least 15 people, and then we've got all the other part-time employees who are covered under the classification schedule. There's also some other requests in there for potential changes for certain positions that would be dealt with as the year goes by, depending on how the budget goes.
Okay.
And with the dispatchers, because we do not have a settled contract, even though it's just 7 people, it's potential that we'll have to use 2 years' worth of reserve personnel there.
Okay.
I will say that just so you understand, when you're looking at the budget request sheet, it does look like it's a substantial increase over last year. Last year's, with the outstanding contracts we had, the request was $230,000. The reason it shows just under $65,000 right now is because we've made transfers since the budget, and it's been revised.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on human resources, employee benefits? If not, we'll move to insurance.
Insurance, okay. We only have some preliminary numbers right now on the first 2 items, the workers' comp and liability, to the point where what I've done is put in a 5% increase on both the workers' comp and the LAP, liability, auto, and property insurances. We're waiting to get firm figures from KERMA on those. I expect to be able to cover the total with the projections I've put in. As we get further into the budget season, I may have firmer numbers for you. On the crime fiduciary liability, that's going up by about just under 8%. The reason is twofold. The first of all, our fiduciary liability on pension continues to rise as our assets rise. So that is a good thing, actually. As our assets and our pension plan rise, so does our insurance backup for that. The other thing is we've now we have a part-time tax clerk who is dedicated to the tax department, and we have to show a fiduciary bond for that person as well. So that's part of our increase in there. The miscellaneous insurance is pretty much the same as what we've shown for the past year. Not expecting any change there. Claims deductibles, that is really, you know, a guesstimate. We've been, knock on wood, we've been good on that. We're putting in the same amount for this year, the $20,000 number. Our insurance consultant with H.D. Seeger is contractual, so that remains the same at $10,000. And then we show a number of reimbursements from waste transfer, library, and police outside services that you know, feed back into us based on workers' comp and LAP, based on their salaries and based on their rates from the insurance companies. And the Kerma distribution, even though we were fortunate enough once again to receive a distribution this year, was in the tune of $42,000 as a equity distribution from Kerma. That is something that's not determined until very late into the season, and we've decided not to budget for that, to be very conservative, because there was a year we did not receive anything, so we want to be careful about that. So that's the insurance.
So any equity distribution would fall to fund balance?
Yeah. Yes.
Any questions on it? Okay, Mitch, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll have Sheila take us through the rest of the 10-15 block, which will be information systems, finance, debt service, and there's not much to say about contingency.
No.
Okay, we'll take us through. Start anywhere you want.
We'll start at information.
Yep,
I have 4 minutes left. Let me just change it now.
go ahead.
You weren't talking. At least you weren't talking, Joe.
I'm going to take the opportunity for
Health
pit
break?
stop.
Health break.